Thank you, Madison. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope everyone is safe. And I know this is a time of uncertainty for all of us with the current pandemic. Almost every sector is seeing an impact in different ways. There's especially been a lot of uncertainty regarding funding, and we may see corporates get more conservative with investments unless it can translate to concrete cost savings in the near term. Hopefully in this webinar, as you'll see, and also our other research coming out soon, we can help surface some of the solutions and emerging technologies that are streamlining processes and increasing efficiency in a variety of different industries with AI and robotics, and also help identify some emerging partnerships. So let's get started with our topic for today. Last month, we announced our annual AI 100. We started this list 4 years ago, and it's been amazing to read all the applications and AI research that startups across the globe are working on, and to see companies grow on to produce some amazing work in this field. As Madison mentioned earlier, the AI 100 is our annual pick of the 100 most promising AI startups across the globe. And naturally, one question that we get asked a lot is, how do we pick these companies? The process itself is very rigorous and cuts across, has several stages of shortlisting. But it's a combination of both quantitative and qualitative metrics. I want to quickly walk you through some things that we consider in both the qualitative and the quantitative areas. So I want to quickly walk you through some of the platform data we use in our selection process. Again, AI is broad, as you can see from this map, and cuts across so many different industries. And so we view each industry and each application differently, so you're not comparing apples to cars. But broadly, we use a number of different data sets from the CB Insights platform to gauge startup health and momentum. One is our proprietary Mosaic scores that you see on the right to gauge the overall health and growth potential of a company. And this was developed using a grant from the National Science Foundation. We look at the competitive landscape, how many vendors are working on similar solutions. We also look at business relations. What kind of industry partnerships is this company forming? Some companies may still be in the R&D stage, and so we also look at patent applications for companies that do file patents. And while we do look at funding history and investor quality, it's certainly not the only metric we take into account. Startups may be revenue driven or still in very early stages, but doing some very impressive research, which is why we take a holistic view with all of these different data sets. Apart from this, we have an entire team of analysts and industry experts. And in collaboration with all of these different teams, we look at things like business model feasibility. So are you addressing a bottleneck in the industry that you're operating in with the proposed solution or product? Is there a demand for the solution? How strong is the team? For example, if you're an agricultural AI company, the team should reflect expertise in both the industry they're operating in, which is the agricultural sector, as well as the core AI technology. So our final list of companies is a mix of startups in various stages of R&D and product commercialization. Some of them are well-funded. There are around 10 unicorns on the list this year. But some of them have not sought external funding yet. So it's a mix of different approaches and stages of development. Just to highlight the diversity of solutions here are some of the companies valued at $1 billion or over. Fair, which is the first company that you see here, operates a wholesale marketplace that uses machine learning to match local retailers with goods that are predicted to sell well in their specific location. Another company to the right that you can see is a med device startup, Butterfly Network. And they are developing a portable ultrasound with AI-assisted diagnostics integrated with the product. And we also have early stage startups like Zesty, which is an insurtech company, and it's focused on catastrophe risk. So they're working with clients to, one of their recent undertakings was to predict wildfire risk in California. Dorabot that you see at the bottom right is building robots for warehouse logistics. So you have companies optimizing mining operations, warehouse logistics, insurance, workflows, and even working on bringing AI solutions to designing printed circuit boards. So a lot of creative ways in which companies are applying AI to solve different issues in different industries. In the rest of the presentation, I want to highlight a couple of broad trends to watch out for this year, and also highlight a few startups from the AI 100 list that fall within each of those trends broadly. The first is related to a big tech company that cuts across so many different industries, and that's top of mind for clients across different sectors. How Alphabet will help city governments optimize resources. So if you think about Google 20 years ago, Google was a search engine, and today the company has grown into this powerful AI conglomerate with projects in every sector from healthcare and transportation to cybersecurity and cloud services. One unit within Alphabet, Sidewalk Labs, is particularly focused on smart city development. It's part of they recently signed a $1.3 billion smart city development project in Toronto with public and private partners. So if you think about the implications here, Alphabet is this big tech giant with core AI expertise and the ability to undertake a lot of the financial risk upfront. Sidewalk Labs itself has spun out a number of smaller companies that have gone on and signed their own set of clients. And it's also been investing in startups that are aligned with its goal of urban development and city planning. One such company, which also happens to be one of our finalists on the list this year, is AMP Robotics. They received a funding round backed by Sidewalk Infrastructure Partners. So AMP is building a recycling robot for sorting through electronic waste and municipal waste. So waste disposal and recycling is a pressing issue now for many city and national governments. And as I mentioned earlier, Sidewalk has a contract in Toronto, and so AMP's products are already being tested there for some of the recycling facilities. A second company on the list directly spun out of Alphabet and Sidewalk, Replica. A core part of Replica's product offering to city governments is infrastructure development. So understanding how people behave, how they travel, when they travel, what informs their decisions at different times of the day. So Replica uses location data from mobile phones to model this, and they claim they don't use or they don't collect any personally identifiable information. Which brings us to our next trend and a theme that we'll keep seeing in AI for the next couple of years is data sharing and privacy. Especially in highly regulated industries like finance and healthcare, there's a ton of data available and there's a ton of possibilities with AI, but the data is sensitive. There are restrictions around sharing this data, and in a lot of cases, the IT infrastructure is outdated and the data is siloed. So one promising workaround for this approach is something called federated learning, which is really picking up. And how this is going to, in the next few years, enables this whole new data partnership ecosystem. Mainly the question that federated learning tries to answer is this: how can you partner with other organizations for building AI capabilities without sharing your raw data? So this concept was first introduced by Google in Android keyboards. So when you're typing out text or typing out a message, for the software to predict what you're about to type next, it has to be trained with your local data or your typing pattern and your historical data of how you type and how you message and the kind of language you use. At the same time, you may not be okay with sharing this data centrally with a cloud server to train the algorithm. So this is where federated learning comes in. If you translate the same problem to healthcare, in healthcare, partnering hospitals can improve an AI algorithm without sharing raw patient data with each other. So I don't want to go into the weeds of how the technology works during this presentation, but if you click on the link at the bottom of the slide, you'll be able to read about it in detail. so without getting too much into the weeds, essentially your data doesn't leave your system. The AI model, for example, if it's a hospital system, the AI model is trained and updated based on local patient data. And similarly, participating hospitals are training a copy of the model with their local data. So only these updates of the model are shared centrally without the raw data ever leaving the premises. One of the AI 100 companies bringing this to healthcare is Owkin, which is using this approach to bring different cancer treatment centers to collaborate with each other without patient data leaving the premises. And we're also seeing partnerships using federated learning in both, in banking and financial services. And there have been a number of partnerships that, that were announced recently especially for financial services, because as I mentioned, similar to healthcare, it's a regulated industry, highly regulated, as well as the data is highly sensitive. So the next trend I want to highlight is an interesting application of a tech that has been in the media a lot and is one of the success stories of AI that, really took off in such a short period of time, deepfakes, which I'm sure many of you may have come across online already. There's been a lot of content related to deepfakes recently, but essentially it's hyper-realistic AI-generated images and videos that look so real that you can't really tell the difference easily. Mainly the discussion around deepfakes has been with regards to cybersecurity implications, which is the potential misuse is obvious here, including in misuse in political campaigns or everyday news and media. But now, moving away from the cybersecurity concerns, brand and media companies, as well as retailers, are trying to use this technology to automate brand marketing and improve personalization. So giving you an example here, the company, the picture that you see at the top lets users virtually try on clothes before buying it. So it can, using the same technology, it can essentially swap your face with that of the models. And you can see virtually how a particular piece of clothing would look on you. I think the next step with this technology would be getting accurate body measurements and proportions to make this virtual experience even more realistic. And at the bottom, you can see, AI-generated talking heads that look very real, but are actually fake. And the talking heads are from a research that was published by Samsung. It was a paper on the same topic. And one of the finalists in our AI 100 list this year is Synthesia. It gained popularity when it used AI to make David Beckham speak in 9 different languages to spread awareness about malaria. It was a campaign video for an NGO called Malaria Must Die. And so it really hints at potential use of the technology in reaching a wider audience, reaching them in their own local language without re-recording the video in, say, 20 different languages, being able to, recreate the video to and have that accurate lip sync to be able to make an actor speak in multiple languages. Also closely related is synthetic voice. So we saw earlier synthetic images, synthetic videos, but also one of the companies on our list working on hyper-realistic AI-generated voiceovers is Wellsaid Labs. And some of the early applications, we could potentially see it apart from, obvious ones like news and media. Some interesting ones are in education and audiobooks and ebook, voiceovers for ebooks. So a lot of promising applications with this technology. But at the same time, it also brings us to our next topic and a trend to watch, which is cybersecurity. There are 2 things that I would like to highlight here in terms of AI and cybersecurity. I think this is an interesting field because it's a bit of a cat and mouse game. as your cyber defenses get smarter, your cyber attacks get even more smart, even smarter. And so it's a constant game of who's going to outmatch the other in terms of tech capabilities. So this is a field that's going to be constantly evolving, but two interesting themes emerging here. One is using deepfakes or all the other advances in AI to launch sophisticated attacks. But the second is we've seen a number of AI startups that have come up that are using AI-driven solutions for cyber defense. But hackers have shown that they're able to exploit weaknesses in the AI model to bypass it. So now you have two types of attacks to watch out for. One is attacks that use AI, and the second is attacks that exploit AI-enabled defenses. To give you an example of each, recently there was news about the first use cases of AI to mimic a CEO's voice for phishing scams. And the second is, this was back in 2018 when IBM had showcased a proof of concept of an AI concealed malware that could be extremely hard to detect. While they said that there has been no such attack discovered in the real world yet, that is not to say it does not exist, because the same open source tools that are available to you are also available to hackers and people who want to use this for malicious purposes. And so now more than ever, I think cybersecurity is going to, it's one of the, I would say it's more underrated than all the other areas we think about when we talk about AI in general, but it's going to be a very important application going forward. 4 of the startups on our list to watch, including Blue Hexagon, SentinelOne, all companies working on detecting sophisticated phishing attacks, working on endpoint security, end-to-end cybersecurity solutions. So these are some of the companies to watch there. Apart from the ones that I highlighted here, there are companies doing a number of important, interesting things in sectors like diagnostics, Healthy.io that you see here, Squirrel AI Learning, and GraphCore. So after this webinar, please feel free to go to our collections in the platform and take your time to go through each company, go to the profile, spend some time with it and see what applications are applicable to your industry and what your interests are. If you have any questions about the data or the selection process or the trends, please feel free to reach out to me or tweet at CB Insights, and one of us will get back to you soon. If you would like to access the collection with a free trial, Madison will be sending out a link. So feel free to sign up using that and check out the companies that we just covered today. And yeah, thank you so much for joining, and hope you're safe. And yeah, thank you.